this capital of the slave trade because he was determined to launch America's new national museum on the remains of a ship.
I thought it wouldn't be hard. So I called museums around the world and said, okay, look, you must have some things, you must know where I can get some material. And everybody said no. And they said to me, well, Ronnie, almost every slave ship was at the end of its life, so it's probably at the ocean floor. And then I got scared. Then I thought, no, I'm not going to be able to find this.
Mozambique Island rises from the Indian Ocean, south of the equator. It was one of the points in what was called the triangular trade. Goods from Europe to Africa, slaves to the New World, and cotton, gold, and tobacco back to the old. In the 1400s, the Portuguese were the first Europeans to trade in slaves, and they became the largest, followed by the English, French, Spanish, and Dutch. On Mozambique Island, the Portuguese built a fortress that they called Saint Sebastian for the Christian martyr who was captured, chained, and murdered in Rome in the year 288. The irony of that name was the only thing here the Portuguese failed to grasp.
You know, when you look at the enormous effort that went into building this fort, they were protecting something that was hugely valuable to them.
They recognized that the key to their future as nations with economic prosperity was the slave trade.
The fort oversaw the trafficking of more than 400,000 slaves. Bunch was certain there had to be evidence of a ship, and he soon discovered he wasn't the only one looking.
Give me a hand.
He found a group of researchers calling themselves the Slave Wrecks Project, and they were following a promising lead.
What do we find down here?
A very interesting thing.
Decio Mwanga is a Mozambican archaeologist helping the Slave Wrecks Project locate the beginning of the story.
This is a tunnel that was used to put slaves inside the island and put them out of the island as well.
Under the old Portuguese town, tunnels connected holding pens to the sea. The devout Portuguese preferred to keep slaves in transit out of sight.
How were these slaves captured?
Some individuals, African individuals, specializing in capturing slaves. So they would go and raid villages far, far from here. And they walked chained all the way from there to here. And of course, lots of them died on the way.
So these were Africans?
Yes.
Capturing Africans?
Yes, yes. It was not only a business for the Portuguese, the Europeans in this case, but also for some of the local chiefs as well.
Those local chiefs came to this auction house to sell captives to European clients.
A male in the late 18th century, early 19th century would go anywhere from $600 to $1,500, which is probably about $9,000 to $15,000 today.
This was incredibly lucrative.
In the years before the Civil War, the amount